All right, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Now that the draft is far behind us, the undrafted free agent cycle is behind us as well. We like to take a step back and look through all the decisions the teams have made, including the Lions, of course, evaluating the strategy, see if there's any hidden gems, great values, really smart moves that teams have made. The Lions, of course, one of the best teams in football. Brad Holmes, one of the best GMs. They're all about making smart moves. And they recently, if you read between the lines and look at some reports, it's clear the Lions believe they've got themselves a massive steal at a critical position. We'll get to that report in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew. And this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Detroit Lions, obviously one of the better teams in football. Brad Holmes, GM, one of, if not one of the smartest GMs in all of football. He's done a great job for the last really half decade or so, finding a lot of value, whether it's in the draft or through undrafted free agents in player development as well. And if you look at what the Lions have done, it's clear there's one guy in particular that kind of slid through the radar that they believe could have a big impact, and that's wide receiver Jackson Meeks. Let's pull up this article here, courtesy of The Athletic, and they'll get into some really interesting data on the other side. From the Athletic, like I said, you thought the Lions' Georgia love ended with their draft picks. Jackson Meeks, a former Georgia receiver, transferred ahead of the 2024 season in search of more opportunity. He found it at Syracuse, reunited with former Georgia assistant Fran Brown. It led to what was by far his most productive season, eclipsing the 1,000-yard mark on 71 catches with 7 touchdowns. Meeks isn't the most impressive athlete, 4'6", 440 at 6'2", 213 pounds. Remember that. But he ranks second among FBS receivers in contested catches with 21. The Lions reportedly gave him $200,000 guaranteed. That is a huge chunk of change for an undrafted free agent, especially a guy like Meeks, who is not exactly a world-breaking athlete, which speaks to how he's viewed. It doesn't hurt that he's Zadarius Smith's nephew. I think that last sentence really doesn't matter too much. But let's go into the data here, the raw productive data here. Let's go into our charts here, and let's compare Jackson Meeks with two receivers that were taken in the middle part of the draft. We're talking about Luther Burden and Ty Felton, right? Burden from Missouri, Felton from Maryland. And you can look at the three categories I like when it comes to wide receivers, really, especially in this Lions offense. Obviously, overall grade. How are you in the passing game and run blocking, right? That's important. Can you be a run blocker? Lions are a run-heavy team, obviously. You got to be able to run block at the wide receiver position. And if you look at Jackson Meeks, it's not that he's close to as good as these guys. It's not that he's as good as these guys. Frankly, he's better. If you look at overall grade, you can see Jackson Meeks in blue, Luther Burden in red, and Ty Felton in that goldish color there. Jackson Meeks' grade, he's better than Burden and Felton. If you go to passing game, they're all about the same, but Jackson Meeks edges them out a little bit. And when you go over to run blocking, all the way over there on the far right, Jackson Meeks is far and above beyond Luther Burden and Ty Felton. And now let's remember, both Felton and Burden, these are not bad football players at all. These were quality football players, quality competition, a lot of tool sets that they showed throughout their collegiate career. These were good picks by the teams that got them respectively, good players at the collegiate level. It's just that Jackson Meeks' raw productive performance over the past really 12 months when he really shined out with Syracuse exceeded what these guys did. He just became a really good football player when presented with the opportunity. Now, there are questions about his athleticism, but that leads us directly into the elephant in the room when it comes to the Detroit Lions, and that was their third-round selection, Isaac TeSlaa. I'm going to call him TeSlaa. I just think it's better to refer to him as that way. I know that may not be how you pronounce his name, but let's go into TeSlaa. Again, that's what I'm going to call him because I like it that much. Look at his next-gen stats breakdown over on NFL.com. Again, a lot of people are really questioning this decision by the Lions. You can see if we throw it up on the screen there, his production score, poor, his athleticism score, off the chain first, according to Next Gen Stats, like wide receivers at the combine. So if you look at a guy like TeSlaa and you look at how people evaluated him, he was basically viewed as a guy who was going to be a late round pick, maybe an undrafted free agent guy. He balls out in the Senior Bowl, has a great Senior Bowl, then tests incredibly well. And everyone's so confused. Like, this guy looks like a first round pick if you look at just everything that happened since January 1st, 2025. But everything before that, he looks like a day 3 pick for sure. So the Lions here, they said, basically, we're going to go a hyper-aggressive move. We're going to say, hey, what we saw in 2025 is where he's going. We're a great developmental program in Detroit. Let's go and get this guy, even though it may look like a bit of a reach. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to be hyper-aggressive, what do you have to do? You have to hedge your bets with production. You have to hedge your bets with a quality football player that, push come to shove, is he going to be a great athlete? Is he going to be a game breaker? TeSlaa may become a guy who's a star. He may become a 100-catch kind of receiver down the line. Who knows? He has incredible physical tool sets, and he's just getting better and better. But if it all falls apart, if what we saw really the last 6 months when it comes to TeSlaa isn't really who he is, then they can turn to the undrafted free agent Jackson Meeks, a guy who quality football player, contested catches, good run blocker. Again, push come to shove, he can go out there and execute for you. This is a smart hedge against the aggressive mid-round selection. This is what the Lions do so well. Brad Holmes, it's multi-layered moves. He doesn't make decisions in a vacuum. Every pick he makes, every deal he makes is all about working together, creating a team, minimizing risk and maximizing upside. That's exactly what the Lions have done here. And I think it's a great move. And if you look at the dollars allocated to Jackson Meeks at 200 grand, that's a sign that they really believe he could have a good chance to contribute. Again, not a high upside guy, but a solid baseline performer for, relatively speaking, very little. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all this. But first, Lions fans, in the comment section below, of all the decisions made, whether in the draft or the undrafted free agent cycle, what's the one pickup, the one acquisition that you think the Lions did the best on? Whether it was a great value move, great fit move, maybe it's a steal, whatever it is, give us the one pickup, one acquisition, draft pick, undrafted free agent, either or, doesn't matter, that you thought the Lions absolutely crushed it on. Let us know in the comment section below. But mine's enough for me from right now. Give us your thoughts on this move by the Lions.
Yeah, Nick, I think this guy seems really solid for the Lions. And like you said, I like the hedge aspect against Tesla. I'll use that as well. Meeks and Tesla, two different players, but doing really well. And a couple things I like about Meeks is maybe he goes under the radar because while at Georgia in 2022, in 2023, he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. We're talking about last season, 2024, with Syracuse, had 476 snaps in the passing game. 2023, 26 snaps. 2022, 42 snaps. So this isn't a guy that was at Georgia. He was given the volume and he underperformed. This is a guy that really barely got targeted when he was at Georgia if he ever made it onto the field. So I think that's a hidden gem aspect of Meeks where didn't get a lot of show time at Georgia, went to Syracuse, immediately broke out, big 1,000-yard receiver guy, did a lot of really great things, 7 touchdowns as well. I think he proved that he's a strong player. And then you talk about the ACC versus SEC, the level of play not necessarily as high, not matching as much. But I love one thing about Meeks when he went up against the big dogs, the big opponents in the ACC. I think he did some of his best work. You look at his overall grade versus NC State, a tough ACC team, 81.6. You look at his grade versus Miami, I'd say the toughest ACC team, an 85.1 in that game. Then you look at their bowl game against Washington State as well, 85.4 PFF grades in those games. So this is a guy, when the biggest moments came to him, he arose to them and really showed out, did really well in those games. So I think this guy, really interesting prospect. He has a lot of good things going for him. I think you look at his grades around the board, it's like you said, his physicals, very good. His height, great. His weight, great. Maybe not as fast as a guy like Tesla, maybe not as athletic, quote unquote, but he gets the job done on the field. Every time he stepped out on the field with Syracuse, he was a valuable asset to this team. So to get this guy, and everyone has to understand that, we're talking about someone that was an undrafted free agent. Get this kind of quality, to get this kind of value, this kind of production out of a player. I think this is a really, really smart move here for the Lions. I think it really could be something special for them going forward to just show, hey, they love guys with grit. They love guys with determination. That's been their motto for a long time now. This could be the next guy in that line. Undrafted free agent, bring him in, works his way up to the top, earns playing time as a receiver. That would be the story to see from the Lions from this offseason.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand the strategy that smart teams take in terms of how they use mid to late round draft picks and undrafted free agents, right? If you compare it to, say, investing, to, of course, give homage to Warren Buffett, who's going to retire the greatest investor of all time, I think if people look at the mid round draft picks as sort of, and this is what smart teams do, as sort of the stable asset, right? As the guy generally who's going to be a good football player. And that's not a bad strategy to use. But the reality is, what really wins in the NFL is the guys that just crush it. The third round guys that play like all pros, right? They have some flaw for whatever reason, but you get them in the third round for super cheap and he becomes a superstar. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Obviously was not a top 10 pick or anything like that. Still has become one of the best at his position, right? This is how you go from good to great, from average to good, right? As you find these guys that you don't have to use an incredible amount of draft capital on and they become superstars. So instead of looking for, in those middle rounds, quality players, solid players like most teams, the Lions are being hyper aggressive, right? We saw this a few weeks ago. And I think that gives them the highest probability of hitting that superstar, hitting that out the park home run, that 10x or the 26, the 20x or that investment that absolutely explodes. But if you're going to be hyper aggressive, you, like I said earlier, you have to hedge your bet. You have to hedge your investment, because when you're hyper aggressive, as anyone who bets big, whether it's in stocks or anything else, right? There's a good chance it goes to zero. There's a lot of busts when you're hyper aggressive. Tesla could easily be a huge bust, but you have to hedge your investment that, okay, if it goes bust, and you're going to expect a good chunk of them to go bust, right? You're hoping for the grand slam. Sometimes you strike out. What does that mean? It means you have to look for singles hitters. If you're going to look for a singles hitter, to me, there's no better place in the undrafted free agent pool, right? Because these are guys with very limited upside. They're not going to be grand slams. They're not going to be home runs. Why? If they were going to have that potential, they would have been drafted, right? They may be good players, but they just don't have that grand slam potential. But you can still find good singles hitters in that pool. And that's what the Lions have done with this phenomenal hedge. Again, this is what smart teams are starting to do. The Lions, Brad Holmes, of course, leading from the front here. I think we're going to start seeing this more and more, that old school mindset of, oh, in the third round, I want to pick a good, solid player. The second round, I want to pick a good, steady player. Folks, that's not how you win titles anymore. It's about getting great players, home runs with those picks, and using the later rounds and undrafted free agents to fill in the gaps when those guys bust out, because obviously a good chunk of them will. The Lions are taking the lead with this strategy, and I think it'll work out very well for them in the short and long term.